Be Me. October 2015. U.S. Marine, fresh out of boot camp. In the Marines, every boot goes to a place called MCT, Marine Combat Training, after boot camp to learn how to kill things. Infantry Marines stay for 3 months, but POGs, like myself, are only there for 1. East Coast Marines go to a place in North Carolina called Camp Geiger. Almost done with MCT. Add in this small base out in the woods for the last part of our training. People had been spreading rumors about a ghost named Molly that would walk by the front gate between 3 and 4 a.m. It's a little girl. One night, my buddy had ammo watch. Some of us were put on different guard shifts every night. Armory watch, ammo watch, gate guard, etc. Each sentry was given a radio to check in with the sergeant on duty every hour and to call in case anything happens. Each radio is on the same channel so you can hear the other sentries when they talk. Ammo watch was this little shed that had all the ammo in it, obviously out in the woods, just 2 of them, far away from the gate and everything else. 3:30 a.m. or so. Radio. E5. Come in, this is gate guard, over. Sergeant. This is E5. Send it, over. Gate guard. There's something in the woods, over. Well, what is it? It's probably an animal, you pussy, over. Negative, Sergeant, I think it's a person, over. Stand by. It's probably MARSOC, I'm coming over, out. MARSOC is like Marine Special Forces who train over there sometimes mess with us, beyond operator. Next morning, Buddy tells me about what he heard on the radio. Him and the guy he was with thought it was Molly. I was already a little interested in the paranormal, so I say let's go talk to the guy about it. Guy tells us he swears it was a little girl in the woods. The sergeant went out and couldn't find anyone. Sergeant said he didn't think MARSOC was out there training either during the time. Says this isn't the first time this has happened, said it's probably Molly. Sergeant also said Molly was a thing when even he was at MCT. Thought it was a rumor until he became a combat instructor and some of the other instructors said they saw her. Other weird shit would happen there every once in a while. He just stayed out there with this dude for the rest of his shift because all 3 of them were freaked out, including the sergeant. Anywho, a few days pass, more training, more exercises. Hurricane comes. This is already shitty enough. FML. Rains and storms non-stop. Place is basically flooded. Finally get to the last exercise called BSRE. I don't fucking know what that stands for. It's basically a 3-day-long simulated battle between each of the platoons. At least that's how my cycle did it. My cycle was bigger than the normal ones, just more Marines to train for some reason. There's a big fake camp that's supposed to be like one that would be in Iraq right inside the base. During the Op 1 platoon had to defend it each day. There were these 4, I think, long shitty huts out there that they had us sleep in. They said normally there's one they don't use, but since our cycle was bigger, they said they had to put us in there. Okay. Sticks, spiders, mud, everywhere. Had us sleep on the concrete ground. Still pouring rain. Why did I sign up for this .pdf? Sleeping, or at least trying to. Buddy, different one from before, but my closest friend by far, is standing watch. Shines flashlight in my face. Fuck you, man. .gif. Wakes me up. Says he's super freaked out. What? Says he saw a little kid, but it was a little boy. Roll over. Told him to fuck off. Assumed he was messing with me. Said no, he was serious. Looked at him. Saw by the way he was staring at me, and by the way he sounded, he was genuinely scared. Okay, fine. Get up. Still storming out. Looked outside and saw lightning flash, and I felt kind of freaked out. Just a creepy vibe in the air. Everyone is passed out. Just an eerie vibe in the air. Hear my buddy make the weirdest sound ever. Sound of pure fear. Look over, shining flashlight at the ground. Tiny wet footprints. Heart drops to asshole. Looks like this little boy walked like perfectly around him. Oh my fucking God. He is really freaked out. Trying to laugh it off, just saying he's about to shit himself. Tell him to relax. Don't even bother asking any of the exterior guards if they saw anything. I stay up with him, just talking the rest of his shift about anything other than what we saw, trying to get our minds off of how creepy the atmosphere is and how freaked out we are. It works. He gets relieved, and we both go back to sleep. Don't even tell his relief about it, LOL. Next day, it finally stopped raining. We don't tell anyone. Don't want to freak anyone out. No one would believe us. Didn't want to spread more rumors, etc. We now say how we regret how freaked out we were and wished we went after it. Yeah, fucking right. Day goes by. Typical Marine Corps bullshit. Stand by to stand by. Next night, like 12 of us volunteered to go with our motivated sergeant. Different one from before, we'll call him Sergeant Smith, to go recon out in the woods all night since the storm had passed. The woods in this part of NC were all pine trees, mud, and swamp. We just patrolled around the perimeter of the woods for like 2.5 hours. Then we went out deep into the woods. We set up a place to chill out on higher ground where it wasn't as wet and muddy. Sergeant Smith tells us his life story and stories about when he saw combat. We all get into a really deep talk about life and such. Completely forget about the previous night at this point. Hours pass. People start drifting off. Sergeant Smith tells us to go to sleep and he'll take watch. I love this guy. Super cool dude. Before I pass out, I tell Sergeant Smith I'm going to take a piss. Good to go. Walk down this hill into kinda thick brush. Too dark to see anything. Step into what is the beginning of a swamp. Only my foot gets wet. Fuck.jpg. Take a few steps back, unbutton my trousers, whip it out. Commence piss in 3, 2. Hear what sounds like someone walking through the water in front of me and big sticks snapping, like it's something huge. Still dark as fuck, but I can make out something white, like a baggy white dress or something, but I couldn't really tell. I'm getting chills typing this because of what I really saw. Cancel piss. Honestly, my first thought was that a combat instructor had heard us and dressed up like a terrorist in one of those white robes to come ambush us. Run up the hill and tell Sergeant Smith we're about to get ambushed. Says we're on a ceasefire for the night because of the hurricane. Ask me what I saw. Tell him it was this white figure. Tells everyone to wake up, we're leaving. Start to realize what I might have seen. Ask. Tells me not to worry about it, just get my shit and get ready to leave. We hike off and I ask him again. Tells me quietly that if we stay, then we'll hear screaming coming from deeper in the woods. Heart sinks. I'm terrified. Tell him what happened the previous night. Gets quiet. Says they normally don't put Marines in there because of that reason. They call the ghost I saw the Lady in White. Apparently in the 20s or 30s, there was a schoolhouse out in the woods that burned down and killed a bunch of kids and the teacher. I'm speechless. Just want to get the fuck out of there. Next day, I had to write paperwork about what I saw, just to confirm it wasn't a person who was trespassing on government property. The place is called Camp Devil Dog, and I think it's cursed. My theory is some of the combat instructors used a Ouija board or something to make the spirits stronger or whatever. But that place is scary as fuck.
This one is from a friend of mine. Her father was in the militia at Craiova. Note this story isn't so spooky. Also, when you have duty shift, you need to write this if fuss hasn't happened. Nothing special to report. Story: B friend's young dad. He doesn't serve in the army but in the militia. Political police but not as bad as Securitatea. B stationed in Craiova pull guard duty. Everything is fine for a few months until he is paired with a weird guy. Some other guys told him the guy was really creepy, eyeballing everybody in a sinister way. Days go by. Nothing special to report. 5th of 7th day of guard shift rolls in. Friend's dad goes to switch comrade creepy. Find the guy hanging from the ceiling. Friend's dad calls some guys in the CO, take comrade down and investigate the reason. Guy was left by his wife and apparently was very depressed. End of the shift comes by. Friend's dad writes, comrade creepy hanged himself. Nothing special to report. 6th day passes. 7th and final day of shift comes. Friend's dad hears footsteps in the hall between the entrance and changing room. He thought it was a fellow buddy stopping by for something. Not a soul in the room and hallway. Note outside was pitch black. Goes back to guard room, and he saw the soulless reflection of comrade creepy slowly fading away from the window into the night. He spent the rest of his shift sitting in the farthest corner of the room, away from the door and window. In the morning, he wrote, nothing special to report. He hasn't told anyone about it.
Soldiers in U.S. Army in late 80s told me about a guy killed in a firefight. About a week later, he was recognized just outside the wire of the fire base he died at. He told Sentry that Charlie's going to attack first thing tomorrow morning. The Viet Cong did. People had talked about it and were ready.
My dad was in Vietnam. He never had any ghost-like scary stories, but said you had to be looking over your shoulder a lot. Not just for the enemy, but for your own guys as well. Especially the ones who were there because they were drafted and didn't join up voluntarily. You'd be in the jungle for weeks, and Americans would kill their own guys so they could go a wall and escape or disappear from the war. Lots of Americans, more than you would think, killed their own guys and would flee, and lived in Vietnam for the rest of their lives in peace. It's scary to think some of your own guys were just as much of a threat as the enemy at times. The draft experiment failed, and there would never be another draft for those reasons.
Just a bit of spoop I've heard from various old soldiers. The ghoul, as we call them in the West, or as the Arabs call them, al-Ghul, and no, not the fucking al-Ghul from The Witcher. In Gulf War I, after the hostilities had ceased, there were bodies all over the highways and desert. The al-Ghul would come out at night to feast on them. They are mostly scavengers, according to the ragheads. There were rumors among the burghers of people dancing naked in the night. It is believed this was the al-Ghuls running around the desert feasting on a buffet they had never seen the likes of in centuries. Supposedly, these things look like they are skin and bone, crawl around on all fours, and are insanely strong and fast. The legends in the region is they worship some pre-human religion, are intelligent enough to have a language, and consider humans traitors for forgetting their gods. They guard/live in old tombs buried deep in the desert and only come out at night to scavenge and sometimes hunt lone stragglers. No way of proving any of this, just spoopy stories I've heard.
This is what happened to my dad when he was in the Army. Note that the story dates back to communist times, when military service was mandatory. He told me this when we were at the beach and I kept bringing up paranormal stuff. Imagine the base he was stationed like a square, with A, B, C, D as corners of the squares, with a large tower somewhere in the middle. My dad and his guard dog had to patrol from A to B and then to C. His buddy had to patrol from C to D, then A. Now, the action part. Be my dad, young soldier, patrolling the perimeter in the dead of night, 2 a.m. or something, with good guy dog. He is in the middle of route A to B when he sees outside the base in the bushes a dark human-like silhouette with some sort of creepy white face. The face wasn't glowing or anything, it was just standing out in the night. Spooky thing was doing some sort of weird dance and waving a large club above its head. Dog is scared shitless, won't even bark as he usually did when he saw or heard something. Dog glues himself near my dad's leg. Oh shit. .exe. Arming AK.exe. Dad takes a fraction of a second to get his AK of his back. Creature vanished by the time he looked back. Dad stands and scans the surrounding for a good 5 minutes, then runs to point B and phones his buddy at point D. They meet at point C, my dad and the dog both shaken. Buddy is scared too since he knows my dad ain't no pussy and stuff. They decide to call the corporal, which was in the guard room. Corporal comes and is like, "What the fuck happened?" The corporal face drains off of color. Nobody wants to get up in the guard tower to check out stuff. Corporal tells Dad and Buddy to never speak of what happened and just forget it. Fast forward prior to the revolution of '89. One guard disappears that night. Search party.exe. Guy is not found. Svantu Georgi is a nice place though.
Middle of the day. Fully overcast. Just finished minor river crossing drills. Walk another 300 meters or so across open country and head towards this small section of bush out by itself in the desert around Mount Ruapehu. The bush is dead quiet. No birds or insects. Silence. Get signal for 5 minutes listening halt. Turn around. We are wearing packs with 40+ kilograms. Slowly swing myself around for a good position. Notice the white straight away when I turn around. Directly behind me maybe about 50 to 80 meters just out of the sort of natural clearing/track. Sort of half standing in a shrub about hip height is a girl maybe 8 or 10 in a white dress, looking right at me. Chills down my spine. Freeze. She turns away into the shrub, no sound. Feel incredibly uneasy, standing like an idiot staring into the bush. Get signal to move on. Never see her again and never tell anyone until sometime after, during an end-of-course drinks at the base bar. All a bit tipsy, talking about the exercise. I jokingly mention the girl a saw in the bush. A sergeant, a big Maori fella, snaps his head towards me and says in a fairly serious manner, "Never follow that fucking girl." Whole table is awkwardly silent. Everyone starts laughing and going, "Oh, spooky." Sergeant just shrugs and starts drinking again.
I heard a story from a guy who did tours in Afghanistan, building FOB on Hill, village at the base of the valley. Villagers are kind of spooked that the coalition is building another base, for supposedly obvious reasons. Terp says village elder told him that they shouldn't build anything on top of the hill. It's cursed by the stranded souls of invaders. CO laughs at them. It's probably just some folk tale or legend to scare. Digging unearthed skeletons, AKs, and Soviet equipment, everybody is kind of uneasy. Next day, talk to locals again because troops are having trouble sleeping. Bad mojo about the whole op and location. Locals say that it was the hill that Soviet troops had a last stand against the Mujahideen. The POWs were beheaded. This part gives me goosebumps. Guy tells me that during the night, exactly after 1 a.m., dudes hear Russian voices, casual conversations, dudes having dreams about places in Soviet Union. Everybody is now super paranoid and uneasy. One night, hear gunshots. Everybody on high alert thinking Taliban is attacking. Dead silence. Turns out a guy on guard duty saw a Soviet soldier running at him with half his face missing, then vanished into dust an inch from his face. Guy told me that they had a chance to talk to other units deployed there and had the same phenomenon until they got a chaplain to come and put the bodies to rest with a proper burial.
Be on a convoy to big city. Relatively friendly place. Some worry of IEDs, but otherwise pretty chill. Driving down main drag, some local walks in front of trucks. Oh boy, here we go. JPEG. He just lays down in front of the lead truck, starts waving us on like he wants us to run him over. We just pull around him as he tries to scoot under the wheels of each truck. Everyone, and I mean everyone on the street, was giving him strange room. Get to our KLE, almost forget about the weirdo. Out exfil takes us back past that spot. It was a choke point. Everyone's on edge. No sign of him. Normal vehicle and pedestrian traffic. Just a red smear on the road. Silence in the truck until we leave the city. Dude must have gotten his wish after all.